All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at synonyms.
Ooh.
But not just any synonyms. We're going to be looking at nuanced synonyms.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you can say the same thing using different words.
Yeah.
And it has a totally different impact.
Exactly.
And we found a great source for this deep dive. So, without further ado, let's jump right in and see how we can all learn to use words better and understand people better when they use certain words. So
it's all about precision.
It is all about precision. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Because, you know, there are a lot of words in the English language that kind of mean the same thing. But how do we choose the right one at the right time?
Exactly.
And that's what nuanced synonyms is all about.
Yeah. So the first pair of words we're going to look at are angry and irate. Now, our source says that both of these words obviously mean displeased or upset in some way, but they have different
connotations.
Connotations, that's a good word.
Yeah.
So how would you describe
the
difference between angry and irate?
Well, I think angry is like, you know, kind of like everyday frustration. You know, you're stuck in traffic, you spill your coffee, you know, your internet's not working, you're angry.
Right.
But irate suggests something more. It suggests a loss of control.
Oh,
almost like a raging.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a much higher level of being upset.
It is.
You know what? Now that I think about it, I was actually once irate at a restaurant.
Oh.
They brought me the wrong order like 3 times in a row.
Oh, no.
And the third time, I think I actually said, "This is outrageous, I'm irate."
Oh, wow.
I don't think I've ever actually used that word in real life before.
Well, clearly they pushed you to your...
They did. I was very hungry.
To your limit.
They pushed me to my limit. So I guess I was hangry. There's a whole other...
Right, a whole other...
synonym we could get into.
Exactly.
So I think this really illustrates how choosing the right word can really paint a picture for the listener.
Yeah, absolutely.
It also makes me think about how, you know, you were saying that it can make a difference if you're reading it too. So if, let's say, I'm reading a news article and it says, you know, the CEO was angry about the recent stock drop versus the CEO was irate about the recent stock drop.
Right.
I'm going to have a different image of that CEO in my mind.
Exactly. You're going to be much more fearful of that CEO who's irate.
Exactly.
Because you think they might be making some irrational decisions based on their emotional state.
Right. That's a really good point. So it's not just about how we use words, but also how we interpret the words that others use.
Absolutely.
And speaking of interpreting words, the next pair we're going to look at is persuade versus coerce.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Because this has some serious implications.
Yeah. So the basic definition is that both of these words involve getting someone to do
something.
Something.
Right. The method is very different.
The method is very different. So what would you say is the core difference between...
Okay. So persuasion is like appealing to someone's better angels. You know, you're appealing to their reason, their logic, their emotions.
Oh, okay.
You're trying to convince them that this is the right thing to do.
Oh, okay.
Or the best thing for them.
So it's like you're giving them all the information and letting them...
You're respecting their free will.
Right, respecting their free will.
Yeah, exactly.
To come to a decision.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about coerce?
Coercion is more about force.
Force.
It's about pressure, threats, manipulation.
So you're not really giving them a choice.
You're not giving them a choice. You're saying, do this or else.
Ooh. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
So there are definitely some ethical considerations here.
Yeah. I can see how that...
It could be pretty tricky.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? Think about marketing.
Right.
A lot of marketing is about persuasion.
Yeah.
But some marketing can kind of edge into coercion.
Oh, that's interesting.
Where they make you feel like you have to have this product.
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's like that feeling of, I'm not good enough unless I buy this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be aware of these tactics.
So I think this is a great example of how just one word can really completely change the meaning of the meaning
and the implications of what you're saying.
Wow. Okay. So let's move on to the next pair, which is curious versus nosy.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah. I think we all want to be seen as curious, right?
Yes.
But nobody wants to be
nosy.
Right.
Because curious has positive connotations, right?
Right.
It means you want to learn, you want to explore.
You're interested in the world.
You're engaged.
Yeah. So what's the difference? How does it...
But nosy crossed that line.
Nosy is when you're getting into other people's business.
Ah.
You're crossing boundaries.
Okay.
It's like,
so it's all about boundaries.
it's all about boundaries. Like, you can be curious about someone's work and ask them questions about their work, but you wouldn't ask them about, like, their divorce.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be nosy.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess it's all about being mindful of
context
and the appropriateness of your questions.
Right.
Yeah. I like that. All right, moving on. The next one is confident versus arrogant.
Oh, this is a classic.
Yeah, these are two words that I think are
often confused.
Yeah.
But they're very different.
They're very different. So how would you define confident?
Well, confident is about believing in yourself,
Okay.
knowing your worth, knowing your strengths, but without putting other people down.
Oh, okay.
It's like a quiet self-assurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're
You don't have to brag.
boasting.
You don't have to boast. You just know you're good at what you do. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
What about arrogant?
Arrogant is when you let it go to your head.
Oh.
It's like you think you're better than everyone else.
Right.
And you often put other people down to make yourself feel better.
Oh, so there's that element of it.
It's like an inflated sense of self-importance.
Right. It's not just about being confident. It's about being superior. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like confident is a healthy level of self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
But arrogance is like it's gone too far.
It's toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And for the last word pair today, we are going to talk about economical versus stingy.
Ah, yes. Money matters.
Money matters. Money matters.
Yeah.
So, again, I think we all want to be economical, right?
Yes, we want to be financially responsible.
Right. We want to be smart with our money.
Make wise choices.
Right. But when does that become stingy?
Well, economical is about being efficient.
Okay.
Getting good value for your money. It's like, you're not wasteful, right? But you're not afraid to spend money when you need to.
Okay.
Stingy is when you're unwilling to spend money even when it's necessary.
Oh.
Even if it means you're depriving yourself or others.
So it's like you're taking it too far.
You're taking it too far. It's like, refusing to buy new shoes even though yours have holes in them.
Right.
Or always splitting the bill down to the last penny, even if it makes everyone uncomfortable.
Right. It's like you're putting the money...
It becomes an obsession.
Above the relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. So I think this deep dive has really shown me how just one word can make a
huge difference
in how we communicate,
how we perceive things,
and how we understand,
and how we interact with the world.
And you know what? I bet everyone listening right now is thinking about all the words they use every day.
Thinking about their own vocabulary.
Right.
Yeah.
And whether they could be using more precise language. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from all of this.
Absolutely.
Is that being more mindful of the words we choose can really help us.
Connect better with people.
Connect better, avoid misunderstandings.
And
just generally be more effective.
More effective communicators.
And that's really what it's all about, right?
That's what it's all about.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive today.
Great discussion.
Yeah, it was a really interesting one.
It was.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
What are some other words that you use frequently?
Ooh.
And could you find more nuanced synonyms for them?
That's a challenge for everyone.
Yeah. So go out there, explore, and keep refining your vocabulary.
Keep learning.
Keep learning. All right, everyone. That's all for today.
Bye.
See you next time.
See you later.
Bye. Ready to unlock some secret code?
A secret code? You mean like ciphers and enigma machines and all that?
Not quite, though it can feel that mysterious sometimes. I'm talking about double meanings in English.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Those tricky words that seem to shapeshift depending on who's saying them and how.
Exactly. And we're going deep on this today, decoding those double meanings with your expert insights. And we've got a fantastic source as our guide, Decoding Double Meanings, Mastering Context in English.
Sounds intriguing. I always love exploring the hidden depths of language.
Me too. And for anyone listening who's ever felt puzzled by a word that seemed to have multiple personalities, this deep dive is for you. We're going to equip you to navigate those tricky situations, where you're not quite sure which meaning of a word is intended.
It's like learning a secret handshake, but for words.
I love that analogy. It's like you're in the know, you've cracked the code.
Exactly. And once you understand how double meanings work, you start to see them everywhere.
So Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's decode these double meanings.
Okay, so first things first, our source makes it clear. Some words in English can wear different hats, like they have multiple meanings depending on the situation.
Right. Think of it like this. One word might be a master of disguise, playing different roles depending on the context. It's all about adaptability.
Okay, I'm picturing a word in a trench coat and sunglasses, switching identities.
Exactly. But how do these words pull off these double duty acts? Well, one way is through literal versus figurative meanings.
Ah, the classic duo. Explain that one for our listeners.
Sure. A literal meaning is like the word's everyday outfit. It's the straightforward dictionary definition. Take the word date, for instance. In its literal sense, it refers to a specific day on the calendar.
Got it. Like, mark your calendars, folks. The deep dive is happening on March 1st.
Precisely. But then we have the figurative meaning, where words get to wear something a little more, shall we say, expressive. They take on a more imaginative, metaphorical sense.
So in the case of date, its figurative outfit would be
A romantic outing, same word, completely different scenario. Now, date evokes images of candlelit dinners and maybe some awkward first date conversations.
Yeah. And that's where things can get tricky, right? Because how do we know which outfit the word is wearing at any given time?
That's where context steps in, like a detective, to crack the case. The surrounding words, the situation, even the tone of voice, all these clues help us decipher the intended meaning.
So our brains are constantly playing detective, sifting through these linguistic clues. And you know what? Speaking of words with multiple personalities, our source brought up a word that immediately made me think of my furry friend at home. Bark.
Ah, yes, bark. A word that can really throw you for a loop if you're not careful.
Exactly. Because on the one hand, it's that sharp sound our canine companions make, but then there's another type of bark entirely.
Right, and this is a prime example of how a word can shapeshift depending on its part of speech, whether it's acting like a noun, a verb, or even an adjective.
So we've got bark as a verb, the action of a dog, shall we say, voicing its opinion.
You could put it that way. But then we have bark as a noun, referring to the tough outer layer of a tree.
Two completely different meanings, but just one word. And I think it's fascinating how we effortlessly switch between these meanings without even realizing it most of the time.
It really highlights the incredible processing power of the human brain, doesn't it? We're constantly analyzing language and context to make sense of things.
It's like our brains are these amazing code-breaking machines.
Absolutely. And you know what's even more interesting is that bark is just the tip of the iceberg. Our source compiled a list of 10 common words with these double meanings, and some of them are pretty surprising.
Oh, I know what you mean. Some of them really caught me off guard. Should we take a look at a couple more from that list? I think our listeners would love to hear some examples.
Let's do it. How about the word jam?
Jam. Ooh, now I'm thinking about a delicious strawberry jam.
Exactly. That's the noun form associated with delicious, fruity spreads. But jam can also be a verb, describing the act of being stuck or trapped.
Oh, right. Like we're in a traffic jam or the printer's jammed again.
Precisely. And isn't it interesting how one word can capture both something enjoyable, like a tasty treat, and something frustrating, like being stuck in traffic?
It's amazing. Same word, completely different vibes. Any other words from the list that you think our listeners would find particularly interesting?
Well, how about the word well? We use it all the time, but I bet most people don't realize it has a double meaning, too.
Good one. I'm curious. Break it down for us.
Okay, so well can be a noun. And in this sense, it refers to a deep hole dug into the ground to access water.
Like the villagers gathered around the well.
Exactly. But well can also be an adverb describing how something is done. For example, she did well in the test.
So we wouldn't say she dug a well in the test, though now that I say that out loud, it's kind of funny.
You see, that's why context is key. It's like having a map to navigate these linguistic twists and turns.
I love that. It's like context is our GPS, guiding us through the maze of double meanings.
Precisely. The more we pay attention to context, the more effectively we can communicate and avoid those, shall we say, awkward mix-ups.
Because nobody wants to accidentally compliment someone's well-digging skills when they were talking about their exam results.
Exactly. So listeners, remember, context is your friend. It's the key to unlocking those double meanings and ensuring smooth communication.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for the English language.
I like that.
Yeah.
A secret decoder ring for understanding words in all their multifaceted glory.
Well said. So as we wrap out this deep dive into double meanings, what's the biggest takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember?
That English is full of surprises. And these double meanings, they're not just random quirks. They add richness and depth to the language.
Absolutely. They invite us to think more deeply about the words we use and how we use them.
And that brings up an interesting question. How many other words in our everyday conversations have these hidden meanings that we might be overlooking?
It's a great question to ponder. Maybe it's time for all of us to put on our detective hats and start exploring.
Indeed. You never know what linguistic treasures you might uncover.
So to all our listeners out there, keep an ear out for those double meanings. You'll be amazed at how many you start noticing.
Yeah.
Until next time, happy decoding. All right, so you guys want to learn about using stronger verbs in your English, huh? Well, you came to the right place.
That's right. Today we're taking a deep dive into a book called Power Verbs, Transform Your English.
And we're going to unpack how these little words, these verbs, can really make your communication more powerful.
And, everyone always talks about strong verbs, but we're going to go a little deeper today.
Right, yeah, beyond the basics, we're going to really explore why these verbs work the way they do.
Exactly. And the cool thing about these power verbs is, well, they're not just about, giving information. They really create a more vivid experience for whoever's listening or reading.
Gotcha. Okay, so give me an example. What makes them so powerful? What are we talking about here?
So the book gives this example of using devour instead of eat.
Okay.
And when you say devour, it engages all your senses. You don't just understand that someone is eating, you can practically hear it.
Oh.
You can picture how enthusiastic they are, and you can almost taste the food.
You really get pulled in.
Yeah, exactly. It just pulls you right into that experience.
Yeah. I was reading a book review the other day. It said, I devoured this book in one sitting.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, that must be one captivating book.
Yeah.
Made me want to read it right then.
I bet, yeah. And it wouldn't have been the same if they had just said, I read the book quickly.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, not the same at all. So it's not just about using a big fancy word. It's about picking the one that really gives that.
Triggers a stronger reaction.
Yeah, exactly. Stronger reaction.
Like you said, yeah.
Okay, so another example.
Sure. So the source talks about the difference between she gave a speech and she delivered a speech.
Okay, yeah.
And I mean, it's a small change, but
That's subtle.
delivered makes you think she's authoritative, that she's got a purpose.
Right.
And everyone heard her message.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I never really thought about it that way. I'm starting to see that there's more to it than I thought.
Totally.
It's not just opening up at the source and picking a long word.
No, not at all.
That's about the right word.
Okay, so the book, it gives this whole list of power verbs. How are you supposed to know, which one to pick?
Right. There are so many good ones to choose from.
Yeah.
But the key is, what nuance are you trying to get across? What do you really want to say?
Okay, yeah.
So they have this practice section, and the sentence is, she blank the mystery for the class.
Okay.
So if you want to say the explanation was super clear, everyone got it,
Right.
you might say, she illuminated the mystery for the class.
Oh, okay.
But if it's more about uncovering hidden clues and stuff,
Yeah.
then unraveled might be better.
Oh. So even though they're both strong verbs, it's really about
Right.
what you're trying to.
Yeah, where you're highlighting, yeah.
Okay, I get it. That's where those subtle differences are really important.
So what's the big takeaway here for our listeners?
I'd say, remember, power verbs are tools to make your communication more exciting and effective.
Okay, yeah.
But like any tool, you got to use them carefully.
Right. You got to know how to use them.
Exactly. And think about the impact they'll have.
Okay, so what's our challenge for everyone listening today?
Well, I want you to pay attention to the verbs you use today. Just notice them.
Okay.
Try swapping in a power verb and see how it feels.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Does it change how your message comes across?
I love it. Great advice. Go forth and amplify your English, everyone.
That's right.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to our deep dive into better English fluency. We're going to be looking at some excerpts from 21 Words for English Fluency, a replacement guide, and it's really all about swapping out those blah words with alternatives that pack more punch. It's kind of like a vocabulary upgrade. We're going to uncover why those seemingly small tweaks can make you sound incredibly fluent.
It is fascinating, isn't it? How so many language learners, they hit a wall. They know a lot of words, but their speak still lacks that wow factor. So I think this deep dive is going to equip our listeners to not just know more words, but to choose the ones that create the most impact.
Yeah, so let's unpack why replacing basic words is so important. The source argues that it's not just about sounding fancy, right?
Right. I mean, think of it this way. Basic words are kind of like the foundation of a house. They're essential, but they don't make it unique, right? It's the details, the architectural flourishes that give it personality. And it's very similar when we're talking about vocabulary. Using a richer vocabulary lets you express yourself with more precision and personality. It's about painting a more vivid picture for your listener.
So it's about moving beyond just being understood and towards being truly engaging. The source kicks things off with 7 common words that we use all the time, but maybe we could be using better.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's hear them.
First up, we're saying goodbye to very. It's like the default intensifier, but it doesn't really add much oomph. Instead, the source suggests we try going for words like extremely or incredibly. So instead of saying, I'm very tired, you would say, I'm incredibly tired.
Yes. And you know, it's interesting, the choice between extremely and incredibly. Extremely feels a lot more factual and objective, right? While incredibly conveys a much stronger sense of personal feeling. It's almost like you can't believe how tired you are.
Ooh, that's a good point. It's like choosing the right spice for your dish, right?
Yeah.
They both add heat, but in slightly different ways. What about good? Surely there are more exciting ways to express positivity, right?
Absolutely. So the source suggests we go with amazing, fantastic, or excellent as upgrades. But again, it really depends on what you want to convey. Fantastic has a very bright, almost childlike energy to it. Excellent, on the other hand, feels more refined, more adult, maybe even a bit more reserved in its enthusiasm.
Okay, so if I'm describing a roller coaster, I'd probably go with fantastic.
Yeah.
But if I'm praising someone's work performance, excellent might be a better fit.
Exactly. It's all about matching the word to the tone and the context. Now, on the flip side, how do we move beyond just saying bad when something is, well, not good?
Yeah, bad feels kind of vague, doesn't it? It's like a one-size-fits-all complaint.
Right. And the source gives us options like terrible, awful, or horrible. So awful suggests something that's offensive to your senses, whereas terrible implies something that causes distress or fear. And horrible is even stronger, suggesting something truly repulsive or shocking.
So if I had a truly disgusting meal, horrible would be the word.
Precisely. Now let's talk about size. Instead of big, the source recommends words like huge, massive, or enormous.
Yeah, it's like we're taking big and supersizing it.
Yes. And each of those replacements has a slightly different connotation. Huge is pretty much a general intensifier. Massive emphasizes weight and density, while enormous suggests something overwhelming in scale.
So massive would be perfect for describing, say, a giant boulder, while enormous might be better suited for like a sprawling cityscape.
You got it. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, we're trading in small for words like tiny, petite, or miniature.
Tiny is definitely more evocative than just small, wouldn't you say? It almost makes me think of something delicate and precious.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of using more descriptive language. You can actually evoke specific feelings and images in your listener's mind.
Okay, let's move on to feelings. So the source suggests replacing happy with words like joyful, thrilled, or excited.
Happy is a wonderful feeling, but it can be a bit too general at times. Joyful has a sense of deep contentment and peace, while thrilled implies a surge of excitement and delight. And excited is more outward focused, suggesting eagerness and anticipation.
So if I win a lottery, I'm probably feeling thrilled, but if I'm spending time with loved ones, I might be more joyful.
Exactly. Now, how about replacing sad with more nuanced words?
Yeah, sad can feel a bit flat, especially if you're trying to express something more complex.
Right. And so the source recommends using words like heartbroken, upset, or down. Heartbroken conveys a deep sense of loss and grief, while upset suggests a feeling of distress and agitation. And then down is more subtle. It implies a mild but persistent feeling of sadness.
Interesting. So if I lost my pet, I might say I'm heartbroken, but if I miss a train, I might just be upset.
Exactly. You're starting to see how these seemingly simple word choices can have a big impact on how you express yourself.
Wow, we've already covered 7 words, and I'm feeling like my vocabulary is getting a major upgrade. What stands out to you so far?
I think what's fascinating is that we're not just replacing words, we're exploring the subtle shades of meaning they carry. It's about becoming more aware of the power of language
Wow.
and how it can be used to create a richer, more engaging communication experience.
I completely agree. And this is just the beginning. We're about to dive into the world of verbs, which is where things get really interesting. Okay, so get ready to energize your language. We are moving on to verbs, which the source calls the engines of our sentences. I'm really excited to see how we can replace some common verbs with more dynamic alternatives.
Oh, I think you'll be surprised by how much vibrancy you can inject into your speech just by being more mindful of your verb choices. It's like swapping out a sputtering engine for a high-performance one, you know?
I love that analogy. Okay, let's dive right in. First up, we're going to be looking at replacing say, which feels pretty basic, right?
Yeah, I mean, say is often the default verb that we use when we're reporting speech, but it can be a bit bland, you know? The source suggests alternatives like mention, state, or express. And each of these verbs adds a layer of nuance to how we convey information.
So instead of saying he said he was busy, I could say he mentioned he was busy. Does that really make a difference?
It does. It does. Mention suggests that the information was shared sort of in passing, maybe as part of a larger conversation. State, on the other hand, implies a more formal or deliberate declaration of fact, and express highlights the speaker's feelings or opinions.
Interesting. It's like choosing the right tool for the job,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb.
Exactly. Now, what about get? It seems like we use that for almost everything.
Yeah, I know, right? Get is definitely a workhorse in the English language, but it can be a bit vague.
Absolutely. So the source recommends replacing get with more specific verbs like receive, obtain, or acquire. Okay, so receive implies a passive act of getting something that is given to you. Obtain suggests a more active effort to get something that you want. And then acquire often implies a sense of gaining possession of something valuable or rare.
So if I was gifted a book, I'd say I received a book. But if I won a prize, I might say I obtained a prize.
Precisely. Now, how about we tackle do? It's another verb that we use constantly, but maybe there are more precise ways to express action.
Do feels a bit like a placeholder, doesn't it? It's just filling a gap in the sentence.
Yeah, and it can weaken your writing or your speech. So the source suggests replacing do with verbs like perform, complete, or accomplish. Perform implies carrying out a task with skill and precision, while complete emphasizes finishing something that was started. Accomplish suggests achieving a goal or overcoming an obstacle.
So instead of saying I need to do my homework, I could say I need to complete my homework, which makes it sound more like a defined task with a clear endpoint.
That's right. And it might even motivate you to actually get it done.
Speaking of getting things done, what about make? It's another verb that seems to cover a wide range of actions.
Right. The source suggests replacing make with verbs like create, develop, or produce. Create implies bringing something new into existence. Develop suggests a process of growth and refinement. And then produce often refers to creating something tangible or measurable.
So if I'm baking a cake, I'd say I'm creating a cake. But if I'm working on a new business strategy, I'd say I'm developing a strategy.
Exactly. It's about choosing verbs that actually reflect the specific nature of the action. Now, how about we get moving with go? Any suggestions for replacing this common verb?
Go seems a bit too basic for our sophisticated taste now, doesn't it?
Indeed. The source recommends replacing go with verbs like travel, visit, or head to. Travel suggests a journey, often over a long distance. Visit implies a shorter trip with a specific purpose in mind. And head to is more informal, and it's often used to describe going somewhere specific.
So if I'm planning a vacation, I'd say I'm traveling to Europe. But if I'm just going to the grocery store, I'd say I'm heading to the store.
Exactly. Now let's talk about need, which often comes up when we're talking about requirements or obligations.
Yeah, sometimes need can sound a bit whiny, don't you think? Like you're pleading for something?
Yes, and it doesn't always convey a sense of urgency or importance. So the source suggests replacing need with stronger verbs like require or demand. Require implies a necessary condition or a prerequisite. Demand suggests a very insistent request or a non-negotiable requirement.
Okay, so if I'm talking about a project deadline, I'd say the project requires more time. But if I'm talking about my rights, I might say I demand to be heard.
Exactly. Now let's wrap up this section with think, which is another common verb that we use to express our thoughts and opinions.
Think can feel a bit casual, though, especially if you're trying to sound more authoritative or thoughtful.
You're right. And so the source suggests replacing think with more deliberate verbs like consider, or reflect on. Consider implies weighing different options or perspectives. Reflect on suggests a deeper level of contemplation and analysis.
So instead of saying, I think this is a good idea, I might say, I've considered all the options and I believe this is the best approach.
Exactly. You're demonstrating a more thoughtful and analytical approach to your decision-making.
This has been an incredible journey through the world of verbs. I'm already feeling more confident and articulate just by thinking about these replacements.
And we're not done yet. Next, we'll be tackling those pesky filler words that can weaken our speech. I think we're all guilty of using a few of those.
Oh, absolutely. I know I am. I'm eager to learn how to eliminate them and sound more fluent. Okay, so it's time to polish our speech. Let's get rid of those pesky filler words. I have a feeling this section's going to be really helpful, at least for me.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. I mean, filler words are those little intruders. They sneak into our sentences. They just kind of clutter up our communication.
Yeah.
They don't add any meaning, any real meaning. And they can make us sound hesitant or unsure of ourselves. But the good news is that we can replace them, with either more powerful pauses or just more meaningful expressions.
I am so ready for a filler-free upgrade. So what's the first offender on our list?
Well, one of the most common culprits is like. And we often use it as a crutch, when we're trying to gather our thoughts or when we want to express some uncertainty. So instead of saying, I was really surprised, try pausing for a moment. You just say, I was really surprised. It just sounds so much more confident and direct.
Yeah, it's amazing how just a small change can make such a big difference. So what other fillers should we be mindful of?
Well, stuff is another word that can weaken our communication. It's just so vague. Instead of saying, I have a lot of stuff to do, try to be more specific. You could say, I have many tasks to complete, or I have a long list of errands to run.
It's like we're decluttering our language, right? Replacing those fuzzy words with clear and concise alternatives. What about thing? I feel like I use that one all the time when I can't think of the right word.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah.
But instead of relying on thing, just try to find a more descriptive noun. For example, instead of saying, can you pass me that thing? You could say, can you pass me the remote? Or can you hand me the book?
Right. It's all about being more intentional with our word choices, isn't it? So what about really? It seems like we use that one to emphasize almost everything.
Right, really is an intensifier, but it can lose its power when it's overused. The source suggests replacing it with stronger adverbs like truly, absolutely, or completely. So instead of saying, I really enjoyed the movie, you could say, I absolutely love the movie, which just conveys a much stronger sense of enthusiasm.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. We're replacing those weak, generic words with alternatives that are much more precise, much more impactful. So what about okay and just? Those seem to pop up in my conversations all the time.
Well, okay can be a really useful word, for expressing agreement or acknowledging something. But it can also become a filler word if we just use it too often. So instead of saying, okay, I'll do it later, you could try, sure, I'll take care of it later, or no problem, I'll get to it soon.
And what about just? It's like a little verbal tick that just sneaks into my sentences.
Yeah, just is often used to sort of downplay something or to make it seem less important. But sometimes we actually want to convey a sense of importance or urgency. So instead of saying, I just need a few minutes, you could say, I need a few minutes of your time, or I only need a few minutes.
It's amazing how those small tweaks in word choice can really shift the entire tone of the sentence. So any other fillers that we need to address before we wrap up?
Yes, let's talk about the phrase a lot. It's another one of those vague expressions that can weaken our communication. So instead of saying, I have a lot of work to do, try using more descriptive quantifiers, like a great deal of, or a significant amount of, or even a mountain of if you're feeling overwhelmed.
This has been an amazing deep dive. I think I can speak for both of us when I say I'm realizing that becoming more fluent isn't just about, learning more words. It's also about choosing the right words and using them effectively.
I completely agree. It's about being mindful of the words we use and how they impact our listeners. So, by replacing common words with stronger, more nuanced alternatives, we can express ourselves with greater clarity, confidence, and impact.
And to our listener, we really encourage you to take what you've learned today and start experimenting with these word replacements in your own conversations. Just pay attention to how they make you feel and how others respond to you.
Yeah. And as you continue on your journey of language learning, just remember that fluency is an ongoing process. The more you practice using a richer vocabulary, the more natural it will become. And who knows, you might even inspire others to upgrade their language as well.
That's a fantastic point. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the power of words. And until next time, keep those vocabularies expanding. All right, so we're diving in something pretty cool today. We're talking about spicing up everyday conversations. You've given us this list of really interesting words.
And it seems like you're looking to move past the basic vocabulary, find those real gems.
Yeah, the gems that really capture a feeling.
Exactly. It's not about being pretentious, but it's about really wielding language in a more intentional way.
Like you want to use these words and not sound like you're giving a lecture.
Yeah.
Exactly. You want them to flow naturally. So the piece we're going to dive into is called 11 Most Useful Advanced Words for Daily Conversation You Probably Never Hear Yet.
Okay.
Which is a mouthful, but I think this is going to be fun.
It's a great title.
So first word, serendipity. I just love this word.
Yeah.
It's not just luck, it's luck that brings something good.
Right. It's that good luck.
Yeah. So I remember...
You had a serendipitous moment?
I did, actually. I was completely lost in a new city and, hopelessly lost.
Oh. And I bet that wrong turn led to something fantastic. I stumbled upon this hidden courtyard, and there was this tiny cafe with like the aroma of fresh pastries, live music, the most charming atmosphere. I never would have found it if I hadn't gotten lost.
Well, that's the thing about serendipity, isn't it? It's about being open to the unexpected, recognizing opportunity when it presents itself, even if it's like a detour, like a conversation. Sometimes the most interesting parts of conversations are when you go off script a little bit.
So it's not just about like stumbling onto something good, it's recognizing the potential.
Yeah, recognizing the potential, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's move on from serendipity to quirk, which I think we all have.
Oh, yeah.
And we love them about people.
Little things that make us unique, those endearing oddities. Not weird, just endearing,
The source actually mentioned humming while working.
Oh, yeah, like a little background music. I love it.
Yeah, I do that, and I never thought of it as a quirk.
We don't see our own quirks, right?
They're just part of us.
Yeah.
But other people notice them and they think, oh, that's so-and-so,
Yeah. It's like a friend that always has to have their coffee a certain way, or a colleague that organizes their desk meticulously.
They could even be a conversation starter.
Right.
Like imagine someone noticing you humming and they go, oh, you hum while you work. Me too.
Yeah.
What's your go-to tune?
Yeah. There's a connection.
Totally.
Okay. Now, on the flip side of that, we've got oblivious. We've all been there where we're just completely unaware of something obvious.
And it can be hilarious.
Right.
As long as it's not too embarrassing.
Okay, so I'm going to share one. I once walked right past a friend on the street because I was engrossed in a podcast.
Uh-oh.
And they had to chase me down the block,
no.
waving and shouting my name. Talk about feeling oblivious.
It's a funny anecdote, but it reminds us that we're not always as aware of our surroundings as we think, right?
But maybe that's a good thing sometimes.
How so?
Like maybe obliviousness lets us focus on what's important to us, like tune out distractions.
That's interesting. So it's almost like a superpower, right? The ability to really hone in and block out everything else.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's move from obliviousness to something much more positive, altruistic. And I think this word really speaks to like a genuine concern for others.
Yeah, it's about going beyond just simple acts of kindness, but really making an effort to benefit others, even if it costs you something.
And I think it's important to distinguish true altruism from actions that appear selfless.
Yes.
But maybe have ulterior motives.
Yeah.
Like someone might donate to a charity for the tax benefits rather than out of pure generosity.
It's about the intention.
Yeah.
It's not just the action, but the reason behind it.
And it reminds me of the debate about whether true altruism even exists.
Oh, is there such a thing as pure selflessness?
Right.
That's a big question.
But regardless, I think striving for altruism makes us more empathetic and compassionate.
I agree with that. Totally.
Okay. Let's shift gears and talk about nonchalant.
Ooh. Projecting that cool confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about appearing calm and relaxed, even in situations that might make others anxious. It's like saying, I've got this, without actually having to say it.
It's like gliding through a crowded room unfazed by the chaos around you.
Yeah, I like that.
Effortlessly cool.
But it can't be arrogance.
Right.
It can't be indifference. It's this balance between being composed, but still engaged.
So it's not being aloof.
That's a great distinction, yeah.
Because aloofness creates distance.
It does. But nonchalance, when it's done well, can actually be quite charming. It's magnetic,
So how do you walk that line? How do you project nonchalance without coming across as dismissive or uncaring?
I think it's about being present, engaged, responsive, but with that air of composure. Like a dancer who makes those difficult steps look effortless.
Oh, okay. So you're still putting in the effort,
Yes, you are.
but you make it look easy.
It looks effortless, exactly.
Okay. I'm starting to get this.
Yeah.
But, we can't always be nonchalant. Sometimes life throws us curveballs and we end up feeling completely flustered.
Yeah, flustered. Like that feeling of being caught off guard, a little bit embarrassed, definitely not in control.
Right. You know those moments when you trip and stumble in public?
Oh, yeah.
Or you totally blank on somebody's name and you've met them a million times?
I once spilled a full cup of coffee on a potential client during a job interview.
Oh, no.
Talk about feeling flustered.
So flustered really captures that blend of confusion and nervousness and slight embarrassment.
Yeah, it's like when you're trying to tell a story and you completely forget the punchline.
Yeah, you're laughing
that's sweet.
but cringing inside at the same time.
And I'm guessing it's the opposite of nonchalance.
I would say so, yeah. Nonchalance is like that outward projection, and flustered is the internal experience.
So maybe being able to laugh at ourselves when we're feeling flustered is a sign of confidence.
That's a good point. It's certainly a sign of self-awareness and resilience, I think.
Okay, let's move on to a word that, doesn't necessarily spark joy, like serendipity. It's mundane.
Oh, the daily grind, the routine, the things that can feel soul-crushing if we let them.
Right. Recognizing those aspects of our lives that feel repetitive or uninspired or lacking in excitement.
And this connects back to your desire to elevate your language.
Yeah.
Because using richer vocabulary can be a way to break free from the mundane.
I love that.
So imagine describing your daily commute
Yeah.
as a dreary procession of metal boxes instead of just a boring drive.
It paints such a picture,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Okay, so recognizing the mundane isn't about dwelling in negativity.
Yeah.
It's about becoming aware of the areas in our lives where we might be on autopilot. And then we can use language to shift our perspective, find the beauty or humor even in the everyday.
I love that. It's like reclaiming your power
Yeah.
to shape your experience through the words you choose.
Okay. I love this. It's like we're turning these words into tools for self-discovery and personal growth.
I like that, yeah.
Okay, let's go to eloquent.
Oh, eloquent.
It makes me think of great orators captivating audiences with their words.
Yeah, but eloquence isn't just for the stage or the pulpit, right?
Right?
It's a quality we can cultivate in our everyday conversations.
So it's not just about using big words or fancy language.
No, it's about clarity, precision, choosing the words that resonate with your audience.
So someone like Maya Angelou, her words were simple,
Yes.
but so powerful.
So powerful, yes.
So eloquence is about authenticity and connection,
I think so.
not just sounding impressive.
Exactly.
And it takes practice.
It does.
But the rewards, I think, are huge.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's acknowledge we don't always have all the answers. And sometimes we have these mixed feelings about a situation.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's where ambivalent comes in.
Yes, ambivalent.
Because it acknowledges that we can have those conflicting thoughts and feelings.
Right. It's like when you're offered a job that has amazing perks, but requires you to move away from your family and friends.
Right. On the one hand, you're thrilled.
Yeah.
But
excited about the opportunity.
on the other, it's like, oh, but.
Yeah. So it's not about being indecisive.
No.
It's about recognizing the nuance.
Absolutely.
And rather than forcing ourselves to choose a side,
Right.
embracing ambivalence allows us to hold space for both.
Absolutely. And even use it as a conversation starter instead of just saying, I don't know.
Right.
Right.
Which shuts things down. You can say, well, I'm ambivalent about this.
Yeah.
And it invites further discussion.
I'm sensing a theme here. These words are not just about expanding our vocabulary. They're about becoming more comfortable with the complexities of human experience.
Yeah, that's it. It's about embracing the full spectrum and finding the language to express those.
Okay, let's inject a little humor with facetious.
Oh, facetious. Love it.
This is about not taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, it's playful. It's using humor or even sarcasm to lighten things up a little.
So like when someone asks, how's your day going? And you respond, oh, fantastic. I'm just loving this traffic jam with a big smile on your face.
Yeah.
Right.
But facetiousness can be tricky.
It can be, yeah.
You have to read the room.
You do, because if you're not careful, it can be misinterpreted.
Yeah.
So it's all about being aware of your audience and the context. A well-timed, witty remark can create that bond and laughter.
Yeah.
But the wrong time, disaster.
Right. And I'm guessing it takes a certain amount of self-awareness.
It does, yeah. You have to be able to laugh at yourself.
Okay. I'm ready to embrace my inner facetiousness.
Good. I like it.
But first, let's go to a place of perfection. Pristine.
Ah, pristine. It's such a beautiful word.
It evokes a sense of untouched beauty, something in its ideal state.
It is, yeah. Like a secluded beach.
White sand, crystal clear water.
No footprints.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Or a perfectly preserved antique.
Yes. Gleaming like new.
Yeah. So it's more than just physical objects.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, how so?
You can have a pristine reputation.
Oh.
And a pristine performance.
I see. So it's flawless. Impeccable.
Yeah.
Free from flaws or imperfections.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a powerful word.
It is, yeah. And it's, it connects back to our whole idea of elevating everyday language.
Yeah.
Because by using these words more intentionally, we add that depth and nuance.
Okay, so pristine is not just a perfectly clean room. It's striving for excellence and clarity in all aspects of our lives.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Wow, we've explored 6 of the words on your list. We'll be back with more in part 2 of this deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
I am still kind of buzzing from our exploration of those first 6 words.
Yeah.
But we're just getting started. We've got 5 more.
We do. And remember, this isn't about just adding words. It's about expanding your capacity for expression.
Yeah.
Connecting with people on a deeper level. So where should we go next?
Let's revisit flustered, because I think we've all been there. That feeling of being caught off guard, a little embarrassed.
Totally. Your mind racing.
Yeah, we talked about it being the opposite of nonchalant, but is there a way to reclaim our composure when we're feeling flustered?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of the power of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
If you recognize you're feeling that way, you can start to manage it. It's like saying to yourself, okay, I'm a little flustered right now, but I'm going to take a deep breath.
So it's like acknowledging the feeling, but not letting it control you.
Yeah, and sometimes humor can be a good way to kind of diffuse the tension.
Yeah.
If you can laugh at yourself and the situation.
Right. It takes the sting out of it.
It does, yeah.
Okay, so laugh at my flustered moments. Got it.
Add it to the list.
Okay, let's shift to a word that I think often gets a bad rap. Mundane.
Okay.
It's easy to see it as like the enemy of excitement, right?
Right. The ordinary, the routine, the things that can, feel a little soul-crushing.
Yeah. But we talked earlier about how recognizing the mundane can be a catalyst for change.
Yeah, because it's about becoming aware of those areas in our lives that have just become automatic. We're going through the motions.
Like brushing our teeth or commuting to work or checking email, things we do every day without really thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And those things, they can start to feel draining if we don't find a way to inject some meaning into them.
Okay, so how do we do that?
I think it starts with awareness, right? Once you recognize it, you can choose to approach it differently.
Okay.
Maybe you listen to a podcast while you're doing chores.
Or you try a new route on your commute. Or maybe you use that mundane task as an opportunity for mindfulness.
Oh, I love that.
So instead of rushing through your morning routine, you focus on the sensations.
Yeah.
Like brushing your teeth or the taste of your coffee.
Being present in those little moments.
Yeah. So it's about finding those moments of beauty, even in the midst of the ordinary.
Yes.
And language can play a role in this, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, how so?
Well, by using more descriptive language, we can shift our perspective. So instead of describing your job as boring, which has that negative connotation,
Right.
maybe you say predictable,
Okay.
which then opens up that possibility of, well, how can I be more creative? How can I challenge myself?
So we're reframing the experience through the words we choose.
And that can impact our emotions
Yeah.
and our actions. It's like looking at a familiar painting, but with fresh eyes.
Okay. I like that. So recognizing the mundane is not about dwelling in negativity. It's about becoming aware of the potential for transformation.
I love that.
Yes.
All right. Let's go back to eloquent. We talked about how it's not about using big words.
Yeah.
It's about conveying your message clearly.
With impact.
With impact.
Yeah.
We talked about how Maya Angelou embodied eloquence.
Yes.
But how do we cultivate that in our own lives? Is it something we're born with, or can it be developed?
I think it can be developed. I think it's like learning a musical instrument. You don't become a virtuoso overnight.
Right.
It takes practice. So any practical tips for developing eloquence?
It starts with being mindful of the words you choose, right?
Okay.
Pay attention to the subtle differences between words that might seem synonymous.
Okay, so like instead of just saying happy, maybe I say delighted, joyful,
Exuberant.
exuberant, yeah.
Right.
Depending on the specific shade of happy I want to express.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try using new words, even if you're not sure you're using them exactly right. The more you play with language, the more comfortable you become.
Like trying on different outfits.
I love that.
You might not love everything.
Yes.
But you develop a sense of what works for you.
Exactly. And just like with fashion, with eloquence, you find your own style.
Okay.
There's no right way to be eloquent.
I'm feeling inspired to expand my linguistic wardrobe.
Good, I like that.
But let's be real. There are times when even the most eloquent person is left speechless.
Totally.
We're faced with a situation so complex
Yeah.
that we don't even know what we think.
Yeah, those gray areas in life where we don't have those clear-cut answers. And that's where ambivalent is really helpful.
It allows us to hold space for both sides.
Exactly. Instead of forcing yourself to choose a side, you could acknowledge the validity of both perspectives.
It's like being a judge in a courtroom. You have to listen to both sides
Yeah.
before reaching a verdict.
That's a great analogy. And
Sure.
just like a judge, you have to have that detachment and objectivity.
So how do we cultivate that? How do we avoid getting swept away by our own biases or emotions?
I think it starts with curiosity.
Okay.
Instead of jumping to a conclusion, you approach it with a desire to understand. So ask questions. Really listen.
Be willing to sit with the discomfort of not knowing.
Exactly.
That reminds me of the quote from Rumi, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there."
That's beautiful. And it really does speak to that ability to be open.
Yeah. Okay, so we've explored flustered, mundane, eloquent, ambivalent, and now we have one more word. And it's facetious.
Facetious.
I feel like a shift in tone.
Yes, we're bringing in the humor.
Yeah, a little playfulness.
Yeah, a little playfulness.
Okay, so facetious is all about using humor, sometimes sarcasm, to lighten the mood. But it's a delicate dance, right?
It is.
Because you could offend.
It's all about subtlety and timing. Like a well-placed wink.
Okay.
You know, it can create that shared understanding.
But if you wink at the wrong person or at the wrong time, it can be a disaster.
Exactly. Exactly. So you have to read the room and know your audience.
So probably not something you would use with a stranger.
Maybe not, unless you're really good at reading social cues.
Right.
And you have that confidence. But even then, it's a risk.
So how do we develop that sense of when to use facetious? Is it something that just comes with experience?
I think so. The more you interact with people, the more you'll learn about social dynamics, those subtle cues.
And I'm guessing self-awareness plays a role here too.
Absolutely. Being able to laugh at yourself, not take things too seriously.
So it's like you're saying, hey, I trust you enough to let you see my lighter side.
Exactly. Exactly. And when it's done well, it can create that joy and intimacy.
So it's not just about making a witty remark. It's about creating that shared moment
Absolutely.
of laughter and connection.
I love that. Yes.
Wow. We have explored so much in this segment alone. We've gone from the depths of flustered moments to the transformative power of the mundane, from the art of eloquence to the nuances of ambivalence and the delicate dance of facetiousness. And in the final part of this deep dive, we're going to bring it all together and discuss how to integrate these words into your everyday life, making them not just words you know, but words you use.
Sounds good.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring these 11 words, but now comes the exciting part. How do we actually make them a part of our conversations?
Yeah, it's like we've got this great toolkit,
Right.
but we need to know how to use it.
So how do we go beyond simply knowing the words to actually using them naturally, effortlessly?
I think it's about weaving them into the fabric of your communication. And the beauty is it doesn't have to be a big, daunting task.
Okay, so no flashcards.
No flashcards, no.
Not endless drills.
Start small. Focus on integration.
Okay, I like that. So where do we begin?
Okay, well, instead of trying to master all 11 at once, pick just 3 that really speak to you.
That you can envision yourself using.
Exactly. Let those be your linguistic companions for the week.
So like if someone is drawn to the idea of serendipity, embracing chance encounters, they might choose serendipity, nonchalant, and pristine.
Oh, nice. I like those choices.
Yeah.
That works.
So once you've chosen your 3 words, what's next?
Make them visible. Write them down. Put them on sticky notes.
Okay. Around your house.
Yeah, around the house, on your mirror,
Yeah.
on the fridge,
Yeah.
reminders on your phone.
So you're creating this subtle awareness.
Exactly. And every time you see that word, challenge yourself to use it.
Okay. In a sentence.
Yeah, say it out loud or just think it in your head.
Right. Just to get that familiarity.
Yeah, just make it feel more natural.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Oh, no.
Try using the words in different situations.
With different people.
See how they fit.
Absolutely. It's like trying on new shoes. You got to walk around in them a little bit.
Okay. I'm starting to feel more confident about using these words.
I love that.
What about writing? Can that be a helpful tool?
Oh, absolutely. It gives you that low pressure environment. You can take your time, look up definitions, and play around.
Like journaling.
Yeah, journaling is great. Or even emails, text messages.
Just finding those opportunities.
Yeah, to just stretch those linguistic muscles.
Yeah. And what about observation? Paying attention to how others use language.
Oh, that's huge.
I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I'm always picking up new words and phrases.
Yeah, pay attention. What words are they using? How are they using them? The tone of voice, the pacing.
And you can even borrow.
Yeah. See what you like.
Okay, so we've talked about picking 3 words, making them visible, practice, observation. Any final advice as we wrap up this deep dive?
Yeah, I would say, remember, the goal is not to sound pretentious.
Right.
It's about enriching your communication, being authentic.
It's about unlocking the power of language to enhance your everyday experience.
I love that.
So I'd like to leave everyone with this challenge. Choose just one word we've explored and try to use it in a conversation.
Notice how it feels.
How it changes the flow of the conversation.
Have fun with it.
Yeah. Remember, language is a gift. It's a tool for connection, creativity, self-expression. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring and keep expressing yourself.
Thanks for listening.
All right, so we're diving into these awesome English speaking tips. And guess what? We're going to use storytelling to help you guys get there. I've been really digging through all these tips, and some of them are so cool. Did you know that simply narrating your day, even just making breakfast or walking the dog, can make a huge difference? There's this story about Jane, who was super shy about speaking, but she started doing that, just narrating her day, and her fluency just took off.
You know, it's funny. We often underestimate how powerful just those everyday activities can be. For language learning, it's all about creating a consistent habit of thinking and speaking in English.
Yeah. You know, I used to struggle with this whole think in English thing. I'd be translating everything in my head before I could even say a word. It was exhausting. And my conversations just felt so clunky. What are some ways to actually shift your thinking into English mode?
Well, that's a common challenge. One really effective technique is to start small. So instead of trying to translate entire sentences, just focus on single words or short phrases. For example, when you see a cat, just think cat in English, not your native language. And then as you get more comfortable, gradually increase the complexity. Another helpful tip is to use visual aids. So surround yourself with English labels, posters, even sticky notes. This constant visual reminder will kind of just nudge your brain to start thinking in English.
So it's like training your brain to make those automatic connections, right? Instead of going through that extra translation step.
Exactly. And speaking of training, the source material really emphasizes the importance of daily practice, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. The key is consistency. Think of it like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
And this story about Raj totally proves your point. He was really focused on improving his pronunciation. So he started imitating the dialogue from his favorite movies, paying attention to the actor's intonation and everything. And guess what? It totally worked. He started to sound so much more natural and fluent.
You know what Raj was doing was actually quite clever. He was intuitively tapping into the power of mimicry, which is a fundamental aspect of language acquisition. When we imitate native speakers, we're not just copying sounds, we're absorbing the subtle nuances of the language, the rhythm, the stress patterns, even the emotional tone.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. It's like when we learn our first language as babies, we're constantly mimicking what we hear around us. So why not apply that same principle to learning English?
Exactly. And this leads us to another crucial point that's emphasized in the source material: learning phrases, not just isolated words.
Okay, this is something I've heard before, but honestly, I never fully understood why it was so important. Can you explain a bit more about the benefits of learning phrases instead of just memorizing individual words?
Sure. So when we learn phrases, we're not just acquiring vocabulary, we're also grasping how words work together. In natural flowing speech, for example, instead of just learning the words give and hand, we learn the phrase, could you give me a hand? This teaches us like the grammatical structure, the idiomatic usage, and the natural rhythm of the language.
Oh, so those common phrases become like building blocks for conversations. It's much more efficient than trying to piece together individual words in the moment.
Exactly. Imagine trying to build a house brick by brick versus using prefabricated walls. Phrases are those prefabricated walls of language. They help you communicate more fluently and naturally. The source even gives some great examples, like "what's up?" or "how's it going?"
You know, I never thought of it that way. That's actually a really helpful analogy. So instead of getting bogged down with individual words, we should focus on those everyday phrases and how they're used in context. That's a fantastic takeaway for our listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the beauty of it is you encounter these phrases all the time. In movies.
Yeah.
Music. And everyday conversations. Start paying attention to them. Write them down. And practice using them in your own interactions.
Yeah. I love that. All right, so we've talked about the importance of thinking in English, practicing consistently, and learning phrases. But let's get even more practical. This source has a whole section on using stories to improve fluency. And I have to admit, I was a little skeptical at first, but then they started talking about visualizing the story and really bringing it to life with details. And it clicked for me. I actually tried it with the sample story they gave about a weekend hike. And it was amazing. I felt like I was reliving the experience as I was telling the story in English. Do you find that using your senses helps you remember things better when you're learning a language?
Absolutely. Our brains are wired to remember things that are like emotionally charged and sensory rich. So when you actively engage your senses while you're telling a story in English, like the sights, sounds, smells, you're creating those stronger neural connections, making it much easier to recall the vocabulary and the grammar. It's like turning your brain into a high-definition movie studio.
I love that analogy. It makes so much sense. And speaking of making things stick, this source also recommends recording yourself speaking English. Oh, I used to cringe when I would listen back to my early recordings. But it really helped me pinpoint areas where I needed to improve. It was like having a personal language coach in my pocket.
Yeah, such a valuable tool
Yeah.
for self-assessment. You can hear your pronunciation, your intonation, the overall flow of your speech. You might notice things you weren't even aware of, like maybe using filler words too often or speaking too quickly.
Oh, totally. I used to say and like all the time. But hearing it back on a recording made me so much more conscious of it. And over time, I was able to break those habits.
Exactly. It's all about becoming aware of
Yeah.
your own speech patterns and then making those conscious efforts to improve.
Yeah, for sure. You know, another thing that really stood out to me in these tips was the power of asking questions. It seems so simple, but it's such an effective way to keep conversations flowing and build your confidence.
Asking questions not only demonstrates like your engagement, but it also encourages the other person to share their thoughts and experiences. It kind of takes the pressure off of you to constantly come up with things to say, and it creates a more dynamic and engaging interaction.
Right. And they suggest using those open-ended questions like, what do you think about? Or how is your seat? Which is a great tip. Those kinds of questions invite more detailed responses and give you more opportunities to listen and learn.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. If you don't understand something, native speakers are usually happy to explain or rephrase things. It shows that you're actively listening and you're eager to learn.
Absolutely. It's all about showing genuine interest and engaging with the conversation. Okay, one last tip from this section that I found really intriguing: expanding your vocabulary with context.
Yeah, learning new words in isolation can be a bit like trying to memorize a phone book. It's dry and it's difficult to retain. But when you encounter words in context, within sentences and stories, they come alive. They suddenly have meaning and purpose.
Yeah, they give the example of the word serene used in the sentence. The lake was serene, surrounded by mountains. And it's so true. You can instantly picture the scene and understand the feeling the word is trying to convey.
Exactly. The sentence provides clues to the meaning of the word serene. You can infer that it describes a peaceful, calm, and tranquil atmosphere. And that visual imagery helps cement the word in your memory.
Okay, so I've always kind of found the idea of role-playing a bit intimidating, but this source makes a really compelling case for it. They say it's like a dress rehearsal for real-life conversations, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like a safe space to experiment, make mistakes, and build your confidence. Think about those situations where you might feel a little nervous using English, like ordering food, asking for directions, making a phone call. Role-play those scenarios can really help you feel more prepared and less anxious. when you actually encounter them in real life.
Right. They even provide this example scenario of ordering at a cafe. Want to give it a try?
Sure.
Okay, so imagine I'm the customer and you're the barista. Okay, I'm feeling brave. I'm going to go for it. Hi there. I'd love to try one of your lattes. What would you recommend?
Okay, welcome to our cafe. We have a variety of delicious lattes. Do you prefer something sweet, or are you looking for more of a classic flavor?
I'm feeling adventurous today. What's your most unique latte?
Let's see. Our lavender honey latte is a customer favorite. It's a beautiful balance of floral and sweet notes.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I'll have that, please.
Excellent choice. One lavender honey latte coming right up.
See?
Yeah.
That wasn't so bad. I actually felt pretty comfortable using those phrases and responding in real time.
Yeah. And the more you practice, the more natural it'll become. You can even involve like friends or family members in your role plays to make it even more fun and interactive.
That's a great idea. It kind of turns language practice into a game almost. Okay, so the source also talks about the benefits of joining English-speaking communities. And they share this really cool story about Ahmed, who joined an English-speaking book club. Not only did his speaking improve, but he also made new friends and expanded his cultural horizons.
Yeah. Ahmed's story really highlights like the social and emotional benefits of language learning. You know, it's not just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about connecting with people, sharing experiences, and broadening your perspectives.
It's about finding your tribe, those people who share your passion for the language and can support you on your learning journey.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is there are so many different types of communities out there, like book clubs, hiking groups, online forums, language exchange partners.
So think about your interests, your hobbies, your goals. What kind of community would you feel most comfortable in, most engaged in?
Yeah, the key is to find a space where you can use English authentically and connect with people who share your passions.
Well, this brings us to the end of our deep dive into these incredible English speaking tips. I have to say, I've learned so much from going through all these sources with you.
It's been a pleasure exploring these techniques together. Remember, the most important thing is to enjoy the process, embrace the challenges, celebrate those victories, and never stop exploring the beautiful world of language.
Yes. And for all of you listening out there, remember that fluency comes one step at a time. Keep practicing, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. Until next time, happy speaking.
Hey everyone, and welcome. You know how sometimes you wish you could just switch between formal and informal English? Like it's nothing?
Like having a secret code, yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of what we're diving into today. We've got this awesome cheat sheet all about formal versus informal English, and we're going to break it down.
It's like a superpower, choosing the right words for every situation.
Totally. I mean, imagine going to a job interview and accidentally slipping into super casual slang.
Or using like Shakespearean English when you're just texting your friend.
Oh, been there.
Right.
Not a good look.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. This cheat sheet starts with the core definitions of formal and informal English. And it's really cool how it explains why each style matters.
Yeah, like formal English is all about clarity, respect, sounding professional.
Right. While informal English is warmer, more about connecting with people, showing your personality.
It's fascinating how each style creates a different effect. Like formal language, it's all about being clear and direct, especially when you need to sound authoritative or like an expert. You see it in legal documents, research papers, that sort of thing.
Makes sense.
But in formal language, that's how we build relationships. Express yourself naturally. Think about how you talk to your family or close friends.
So true. It's like having a whole linguistic toolbox. You choose the right tool for the job. Now, this cheat sheet has this awesome table of word pairs that really show the difference between formal and informal English.
Oh, yeah. Those are great examples.
There are a few that just jump out at me, like purchase versus buy. I mean, they basically mean the same thing, but purchase always feels so much more serious.
Yeah, purchase definitely has that heavier, more transactional feel to it. You wouldn't say, I'm going to purchase a candy bar at the store, right?
Definitely not.
But you would say, the company is considering the purchase of a new building. It's like purchase is reserved for bigger, more official things.
Interesting. So it's about using the right word for the situation. And speaking of, another word pair I wanted to ask about is obtain versus get. They both mean to acquire something, but obtain just sounds like you had to work so much harder.
You're right on. Obtain implies effort, and often there's a more formal process involved. Like you wouldn't say, I got my degree after years of study. It doesn't have the same impact.
Right.
You'd say, I obtained my degree. It emphasizes the accomplishment, the effort you put in.
Totally changes the feeling. Okay, I'm starting to see how these small word choices can really change how your message comes across. Now let's jump into some real-life scenarios this cheat sheet covers, like job interviews, texting, and social media.
Ooh, yeah, those are where things can get tricky.
It's like navigating a linguistic minefield. Let's start with job interviews. They're already nerve-wracking enough. What's the biggest language mistake you've seen people make in those situations?
You know, it's not always about using the wrong word. It's more about the overall tone and being aware of the context. I once had this candidate who kept using slang and informal expressions throughout the whole interview.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it wasn't that they were trying to be disrespectful or anything, but it created this disconnect. It made it harder to assess their professionalism, how they would fit into the company culture.
I get it. It's like showing up to a fancy dinner party in, like, sweatpants. It's not that sweatpants are bad, they're just not right for the occasion.
Exactly.
So from your experience, what are some key tips for hitting that sweet spot? Being professional, but still sounding natural in a job interview.
Well, clarity and conciseness are always good things to keep in mind. Like instead of saying, I endeavored to ameliorate the situation,
Right.
You could simply say, I worked to improve the situation. It gets the point across without being too complicated.
So it's about being impressive without being confusing.
Exactly. And don't forget about your nonverbal communication too. Body language, tone of voice, those all play a part.
True. It's all about sending the right signals. All right, let's move on to something you mentioned earlier, texting. I know you're super busy. Do you ever find yourself overthinking your texts, especially when it comes to slang or abbreviations?
Oh, all the time. Texting is naturally informal, but there's still a spectrum there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll type something out and then think, wait, is this too casual? Or will they even understand this abbreviation?
Me too. Like, should I use lel or actually type out, that's funny? It's a real dilemma.
Right. So how do you figure out where the line is, especially when you're texting someone new?
Right.
I think it comes down to, reading the room, even if it's a virtual room. Pay attention to how the other person is texting. Are they using lots of slang, emojis?
Yeah.
Then you can probably loosen up a bit too, but if they're more reserved, it's better to be a little more careful, at least at first.
So it's a bit of a dance, like you said before, mirroring and adapting. That's really helpful. Okay, but what about social media? That feels like a whole different beast. You're potentially talking to tons of people at once.
Yeah.
How do you navigate the formal-informal balance there?
Social media is interesting because it often blends different levels of formality. You might be commenting on a friend's silly post 1 minute and then having a serious discussion in a professional group the next.
Right.
It's like having multiple conversations happening at the same time.
I never thought about it that way. So it's even more important to think about your audience and the purpose of your message.
For sure. Think about who you're trying to reach and what you want to achieve with your post or comment. Are you sharing a personal story, offering professional insights, or just messing around? That'll help you decide how formal to be.
Makes sense. Okay, we've talked about all these specific situations, but I'm curious. Have you ever come across a situation where the line between formal and informal was just totally blurred? Like you had no idea which style to use?
Oh, absolutely. It happens more often than you'd think. One that comes to mind is online forums, those communities where people from all walks of life come together. You might have someone using super technical jargon in one comment, and then someone else responds with a meme.
Oh, wow, a real mix.
It's a linguistic melting pot.
Sounds kind of overwhelming. So how do you even approach a situation like that?
I think the key is to be adaptable and focus on being clear. Even if you don't understand every single word or reference, try to get the main idea and respond in a way that's clear, respectful, and relevant to the topic. And don't be afraid to ask for clarification if you need it.
Great advice. So it's all about being flexible and open to learning. Okay, I'm feeling way more confident about handling these tricky situations now. But before we jump into the next part of your cheat sheet, let's take a quick breather and recap what we've covered so far. We started by defining formal and informal English, those two distinct styles. Then we dug into those tricky word pairs, like purchase versus buy, and saw how those subtle choices can really change your message. And we even tackled those real-life communication minefields, like job interviews, texting, and social media. We learned how to find that balance between being professional and being ourselves.
And the big takeaway is that language is constantly changing, right? So we got to be willing to adapt and learn as we go.
Love that perspective. It's not about always getting it right. It's about being aware, adaptable, and enjoying the ride. And speaking of enjoying the ride, let's buckle up and get ready to explore the fascinating world of how language evolves in the next part of our deep dive. Things are about to get even more interesting.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we got sidetracked with all those real-life scenarios, we were talking about how language is always evolving. I mean, think about how much English has changed even in the last few years. All those new slang terms, all those online expressions.
It's crazy, right? I feel like I need a dictionary just to keep up with my younger cousin sometimes. It's like they're speaking a whole new language. But seriously, how does all this change affect the whole formal versus informal thing? Is formal English becoming like a dinosaur?
That's a really interesting question, and it's actually something that linguists are studying right now. Formal English definitely still has its place. Think about academia, law, government. Those are places where it's still really important.
Right, for official stuff.
Exactly. But it's not immune to change. Even something like email. Think how we used email 10 or 15 years ago. It was always so formal.
Well, you're super serious.
But these days, it's much more common to use relaxed language, especially with colleagues or clients you know well.
I definitely do that. I'm way more comfortable using contractions and even emojis in work emails now. Just depends who I'm emailing, of course.
Right. It's about finding that balance, being professional, but also building relationships.
Totally. And that's where things get really interesting, right? The lines are blurring in a lot of contexts.
Yeah. Like social media is a perfect example, especially LinkedIn. You've got this mix of professional networking and more casual interaction. You might have a CEO posting this super insightful article, and then the next minute they're sharing a funny story about their weekend.
It's true. It's like a whole new world of communication. So are you saying we need to become like linguistic chameleons, constantly adapting to each platform and audience?
Well, it can feel like that sometimes, right? But I think the key is to be aware of what's going on, what the different expectations are. We don't have to abandon all the rules of formal English, but we can also be flexible and creative with informal language.
That reminds me of the practice exercises you included in the cheat sheet.
Oh,
They're not just about memorizing rules. They're about trying different styles, finding your own voice.
exactly. Like there's one where you rewrite a formal email in a more casual way, and then the other way around. It really gets you thinking.
It's like a workout for your language skills.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that language is a tool, and just like any tool, we need to know how to use it for different purposes.
I love that analogy, and that's one of the most important things to remember. Language is a tool. Just like a carpenter wouldn't use a hammer for every job, we need different linguistic tools for different situations.
Okay, I'm starting to feel like I can handle anything. But this whole idea of language evolving, it makes me wonder, what does this mean for the future of communication? Are we all going to end up just talking in emojis and internet slang?
That's a really fascinating question, and honestly, I don't think anyone knows for sure. There are some linguists who think we're moving towards a more informal, global style of communication, where things like grammar and formality become less important. Others think there will always be a need for clear, precise language, especially in professional and academic settings.
Right, it makes sense.
And then there are those who believe that technology, like AI, will play a huge role in shaping how we communicate in the future. Think about voice assistants like Siri and Alexa. They could potentially change the way we speak and write.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about that. So many possibilities. I can't even imagine what English will be like 50 or 100 years from now.
Me neither. But it's exciting to think we're all part of this evolution, right? Contributing our own words, phrases, ways of speaking.
Totally. Maybe someday my younger cousins will be teaching me the latest slang. Who knows? But for now, I feel way more equipped to handle the way things are now. We've covered so much formal and informal English, word choices, those tricky real-life situations.
Yeah, and we've learned that language is always changing, so it's a journey, really. Always something new to learn.
And speaking of journeys, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back to share some final thoughts and inspiration before wrapping up this deep dive. All right, we're back. I hope you had a chance to really think about how you can use all these formal and informal English skills in your own life. It's kind of like we've given you this treasure map, right? But now it's up to you to go out and explore.
I like that, a treasure map. And just like any explorer, you're going to run into some unexpected things, maybe a few challenges, but also some amazing discoveries.
For sure. Okay, before we wrap up our deep dive into formal versus informal English, let's do a quick recap. We started by defining those two styles, formal being all about authority and respect, and informal being more about connecting with people, letting your personality shine through. We even looked at those tricky word pairs like purchase versus buy and obtain versus get.
Yeah, the subtle differences can really make a big impact.
And we talked about all those everyday situations that can be tricky. Job interviews, texting, social media. We figured out how to strike that balance between being professional and being authentic.
It's like having a secret code for communication.
Totally. But honestly, the most fascinating part for me was realizing that language is never really finished. It's always changing, so we have to be ready to adapt.
It's true. The way we communicate today is totally different from even a few decades ago, and who knows what it'll be like in the future.
That's what makes it so exciting. But it also makes you wonder, right, what about the future of language? I mean, we talked about social media and technology, but what about AI? Do you think things like Siri and Alexa will change how we use formal and informal English?
That's a great question. Will we all start speaking in these perfectly grammatical sentences? Or will that casual conversational style from texting become even more common? It's really hard to say.
I know, right? It's kind of mind-blowing. It makes you realize how powerful language is.
Absolutely. It's something we often take for granted, but it shapes how we think, how we interact, how we see the world.
So true. Well, as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with this thought. Whether you're using formal or informal English, the most important thing is to communicate clearly and respectfully, and to let your own unique voice come through.
That's a great way to put it. Don't be afraid to experiment, try new things, make mistakes. That's how we all learn and grow.
Exactly. And remember, language is constantly evolving, so enjoy the journey. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive. Okay, so get this. Today we're looking at how to boost your English fluency with just 19 words.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy, right? Sounds too good to be true, but that's what this whole deep dive is about.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the source material. It's like a crash course for English fluency. Just 19 words.
You know, it's interesting because a lot of people think that to be fluent, you have to know tons of words.
Right.
But this is like the opposite. It's about using the right words at the right time.
Oh, I like that. Like having a toolbox.
Exactly.
With just the tools you need.
Yeah.
So where do we even start with this? There's like all these different categories in the source material.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is transition words.
Okay, transition words.
You know those little words that connect your ideas?
Like however and therefore.
Exactly. Those are great examples.
Yeah, we use those all the time.
Yeah. But they're so important.
Yeah, I never really thought about like why they're important.
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
If you were listening to someone and they just jumped from one idea to the next without any transitions,
It'd be so jarring.
that sounds so spread.
Where are you going with this? Yeah.
So transitions help everything flow. And when you use them well, you sound more organized, more articulate.
Right, because you're guiding the listener.
Exactly.
You're not just like throwing random ideas out there.
It's like you're saying, hey, stick with me here. I'm taking you somewhere.
Okay, that makes sense. So those little words really make a difference.
They do.
Now, I want to talk about something that I struggle with.
Okay.
It's those power verbs and clarity adjectives. Like why say something is good
Right.
when you could say it's compelling.
Exactly. Or insightful.
Yes. Like think about a time when you were just captivated by something. What words would you use to describe it?
Exactly. You want to use words that paint a picture.
Okay.
And strong verbs do that.
So instead of saying, I made a new strategy, you say, I implemented a new strategy.
Exactly. So that's much stronger.
Oh, it sounds so much better.
Right.
But sometimes I just don't have those words at my fingertips.
Right.
You know, I know what I want to say, but
Yeah, it can be tough.
yeah.
But that's the beauty of this 19-word thing. You don't have to learn a million words.
Yeah.
Just focus on these key ones.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly. And it's not about trying to sound like super smart.
Right.
It's about being clear and effective. Like, for example, if you're sending a professional email
Yeah.
and there's a problem, instead of saying, this is bad,
Oh, right.
you could say, this presents a challenge.
Okay, so you're still acknowledging the problem,
Right.
but in a more professional way.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. Okay, now for the one that always trips me up.
Oh, tell me.
Affect versus effect.
Oh, classic.
I swear, I still mix these up.
Don't worry, you're not alone. Even native speakers mess these up.
Oh, thank goodness.
But it's so important to get them right.
Yeah, if you're giving a presentation or something,
Right.
it can undermine your whole message.
Exactly.
So how do we finally conquer this?
Okay, so remember this. Affect is usually a verb,
A verb.
meaning to influence.
Okay.
And effect is usually a noun, meaning the result.
Okay.
So the weather affected my mood.
It influenced how you felt.
Right. And the effect of the weather was that I stayed inside.
That was the outcome. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense now.
Good.
So we've got our transition words, our power verbs and adjectives, and we've tackled those tricky word pairs. What's next?
Let's talk about natural phrases.
Ooh.
You know, those little expressions that make you sound.
Like a native speaker.
Exactly.
I'm ready to unlock the secrets. What have we got?
Well, the source material mentions things like out of the blue, hit the nail on the head, think outside the box.
Okay, so I actually use those.
Yeah.
But I never thought about how they might sound
Yeah.
to someone learning English.
Right. Because for native speakers,
Yeah.
they just come naturally.
Right.
But they add so much personality to your language.
Instead of just like stating facts.
Exactly.
You're adding flavor.
Right.
It's like adding spices to a dish.
I love that analogy.
So the other day, I was telling my friend
Yeah.
how I saw someone I hadn't seen in years.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I ran into him out of the blue.
Yeah.
It just felt more natural than
Gosh.
saying, I saw him unexpectedly.
Yeah, those natural phrases, they just add another level.
They do. I'm definitely going to pay more attention to those
They're good.
and try to use them more.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these small tweaks can really make a difference.
That's what this whole 19-word approach is about.
Yeah.
Giving you the tools to communicate better.
So we've got our transitions, our power verbs, tricky pairs, natural phrases. What's the final tool in our fluency toolbox?
Let's talk about those advanced nouns.
Oh, okay.
You know, words like dilemma, momentum, consensus.
Yeah, those are the ones that make you sound really smart.
They do.
But I'll be honest, I sometimes get a little intimidated by them.
Yeah.
Like I'll be in a conversation and think, oof, there's a better word for this.
Right.
But I just can't think of it.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
It's normal to feel that way.
Okay.
Because we don't use those words every day.
Right.
But when you do use them,
Yeah.
it shows a deeper understanding of the language.
Like you're saying, hey, I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, challenge accepted. I'm going to try to use those more.
Good.
Maybe I'll impress myself.
I think you will. And remember, it's not about sounding smarter than everyone.
Right.
It's about using language effectively.
Okay, so we've explored all these categories
Yeah.
of these 19 words. But how do we actually put this into practice? The source material does mention some practice tips.
It does. It talks about the importance of practice.
Right, because it's not enough to just know the words.
Exactly. You have to use them.
You have to actually use them.
Yes. And one tip is to start small.
Okay,
Don't try to use all 19 words at once.
right. That would be overwhelming.
It would be. So just focus on one or two at a time.
That's a great point. It's like breaking it down into smaller steps
Exactly.
so it feels less daunting.
And remember, fluency is a journey.
Not a destination.
Right. So be patient with yourself and celebrate your progress.
Okay, I love that.
It even says, like, try to use just one new word a day.
Oh, wow.
Like, imagine you
Yeah.
could add 365 new words to your vocabulary in a year.
That's amazing.
Oh.
That would totally change the game.
Right.
And doesn't even sound that hard.
No.
I could definitely use one new word a day.
Yeah.
It's like a fun little challenge.
It is. It's all about that momentum, you know?
Yeah, those little wins.
Exactly. It keeps you going.
And it makes it feel less overwhelming.
Totally.
Like this whole less is more idea.
Yeah.
Focus on the essentials,
Right.
master those, and then you'll sound more fluent.
Exactly. It's about being intentional, right?
Yeah.
Choosing the words that really matter.
You know, we've all had those moments where someone says just the right thing
Yes.
and it just hits you.
It's powerful, right?
It is. Like it makes you think or feel something.
Exactly.
And that's the power of choosing your words carefully.
It is. You know, there's that famous quote. It's
Yeah.
like, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time.
That's so true.
Right. Because being concise,
Yeah,
it actually takes more effort,
it does.
but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's the difference between just speaking and really communicating.
Exactly.
Think about a speech that's moved you. It's probably not full of like jargon or super complicated words.
Right.
It's simple but powerful.
Yeah. The words resonate with you.
They do. It's like
Like what?
it's like a chef who uses just a few high quality ingredients
Okay. Yeah.
but creates an amazing dish.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, they're not trying to like overwhelm you with flavors.
Right.
It's all carefully selected.
So if we apply that to language,
Yeah.
it's about being mindful of how we combine words.
To get our message across.
Exactly.
It's like the grammar of fluency.
It is. It's not just knowing the words. It's
Yeah.
how you put them together.
Yeah, the structure, the tone, the emphasis.
Right.
You know, as we're talking, I'm realizing fluency isn't just about sounding native.
No.
It's about connecting with people.
Exactly. It's like building bridges.
Yeah, between minds and heart.
When you can express yourself clearly,
Yeah.
it opens up so many possibilities.
I mean, you're free to share your ideas, your stories,
Yeah.
without feeling limited by language.
Exactly.
That's so empowering.
It is. Fluency lets you participate in conversations, build relationships, advocate for things you care about.
Wow.
You can even inspire others with your words.
I love that. It's about having a voice
Yes.
and using it.
And, you know, I've definitely held back from saying things.
Really?
Yeah, because I wasn't sure if I could say it right.
Oh, I get that.
But with practice,
Yeah.
those barriers come down.
Okay, so this 19-word approach,
Yeah.
it's like a starting point to build
From feeling intimidated to feeling empowered.
We talk a lot about personal growth on this show.
Yeah.
And I think language is such a big part of that.
Totally.
It's how we express ourselves.
Yeah.
How we connect with the world.
It's essential.
And it's a journey that never really ends.
It doesn't. Language is always changing.
That's true.
So there's always more to learn.
Okay. I think this is a good place to take a pause.
Sound good.
But don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
We have more to share. All right. So we're back. And I was just thinking, this whole fluency thing, it's not just about sounding like a native speaker.
Right.
It's about really connecting with people.
It is. It's like you're able to express yourself more fully.
So someone listening might be thinking, okay, this is all great, but how do I actually, use this?
Well, remember that source material?
Yeah.
It really stresses that you don't have to know every word in the dictionary.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. It's about
Yeah.
choosing the right words
Okay.
to express yourself clearly.
And confident.
Yes.
And what I like about this approach is it's for anyone, no matter your level.
Exactly. Beginner, advanced.
Yeah.
It's about shifting your mindset
Okay.
from feeling overwhelmed
Yeah.
to focusing on the essentials, like those 19 words.
So it's like having a strong foundation.
Yes.
Instead of trying to build like a skyscraper on sand.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey,
Yeah.
not a destination.
Be patient, celebrate the progress.
And enjoy those aha moments.
I love those. Like when you use a new word and it just clicks.
It feels so good. You know, one thing I keep thinking about is how important it is to be intentional with language.
Oh, yeah. That's been coming up for me, too.
It's not just about speaking fluently.
Yeah.
It's about speaking thoughtfully.
Choosing your words carefully.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Making sure your message is clear.
So it has the impact you want.
Right. Like it's the difference between throwing a dart randomly
Okay.
and aiming for the bullseye.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Intentionality brings focus.
Yes. And it shows in how people perceive you
Okay.
when you use language precisely.
Yeah.
You sound more confident, more credible.
It's like you're saying, I respect your time, so I'm going to make every word count.
Exactly.
So, to wrap things up, I have a question for our listeners out there.
Okay. What is it?
We focused on these 19 words, but what other words or phrases do you think are essential for fluency?
I love that question.
Good.
Because it shows that language is always changing. Right. There are always new words to learn.
New things to discover.
So keep expanding your vocabulary.
That's such a good reminder. It's a lifelong journey.
It is.
No matter how fluent you think you are.
There's always more to learn.
I love that.
Oh.
Okay, so to our listener, keep your ears open, your mind curious, and your tongue practicing.
The world needs to hear your voice.
Yes. And fluency is the key to unlocking its potential.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. All right, so you're maybe trying to pick up some conversational English.
Okay.
Maybe for a trip or just for fun.
Right.
Well, we're going deep today on just a list of 66 common words.
Okay.
But I think even if you know these words already, trust me, there's more to uncover here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we take these simple words for granted.
Right.
But they really do hold these fascinating insights into how language works.
Yeah.
How cultures interact.
Wow.
Even how our minds are wired, you know?
It's like finding hidden treasure in our own backyard.
Exactly.
Our first section here is greetings and introductions.
Okay.
And you think simple stuff, right? Hello, goodbye.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm already sensing there's a but coming.
Well, yeah, I mean, consider please and thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, they're polite. But think about the power dynamic there.
Okay.
You know, please subtly positions the speaker as needing something,
Right.
almost in a lower position.
Huh.
Fascinating how these tiny words establish sort of this hierarchy.
Wow. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So is thank you then a way to kind of acknowledge that power dynamic?
Exactly.
Right.
It creates this dance of social obligation in a way.
Interesting.
And it varies across cultures too. Like in some, a simple thank you is enough.
Mm-hmm.
But in others, there are these elaborate rituals of gratitude.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, if you misread those cues,
Yeah.
you can run into all sorts of awkwardness.
So even these basic greetings are like packed with this cultural baggage.
Absolutely.
We might not even realize we're carrying around.
Yeah.
Let's move on to common questions.
Okay.
This is like the 5 W's and an H, what, who, where, when, why, and how.
Right. The foundation
Chasing
of
curiosity, right?
Absolutely. But think about how those seemingly simple words unlock the most complex questions.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go from what's for dinner
Right.
to what is the meaning of life.
Wow.
And mastering these questions isn't just about vocabulary.
Okay.
It's about equipping yourself to learn anything.
Oh, that's cool. You know,
Yeah.
it's like having keys to the universe of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next section, everyday actions, seems pretty straightforward at first glance.
Yeah.
You've got your eat, drink, go, come.
Yeah.
Kind of mundane actions, right?
True. But they're also the building blocks of how we describe our experiences and tell stories.
Oh, okay.
You know, I went to the store. I mean, simple, but without that verb went, the whole thing falls apart.
Right.
These actions become the verbs that drive our sentences. So it's making that communication dynamic.
And it's amazing how these simple verbs combine with other words
Oh, yeah.
to make more nuanced actions.
Right.
So go becomes go ahead, go back, go out.
Exactly.
Just a handful of verbs, and the possibilities are endless.
That's the beauty of language,
Right.
this incredible efficiency and flexibility.
Yeah.
So from just a few core verbs, we construct this infinite array of meanings.
Let's talk about time and directions and basic needs.
Oh.
Words like tomorrow, yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
home, money. These feel really deeply connected to just the human experience.
Oh, they reflect our primal need to orient ourselves in the world. You know, tomorrow is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the next day. It embodies hope and possibility, even anxiety about the future.
It's true.
We grapple with time and place and survival.
Yeah.
And these words capture that.
It's like each of these words is a tiny window into the evolution of human consciousness.
It really is.
Speaking of evolution, the feelings and reactions list
Okay.
feels like a Pandora's box waiting to be opened.
It is. We have happy, sad, angry, tired. They
Yeah.
seem basic.
Yeah.
But then you think about all the cultural layers.
Right.
What makes one person happy might be neutral to another.
That's true.
And how we express these emotions. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a whole other world of cultural norms and unspoken rules.
So even learning the words isn't enough.
Right.
You need to understand the context
Absolutely.
in which they're used.
Yeah.
It's making me realize how much I take for granted in my own language.
That's the point of this whole deep dive,
Yeah.
to appreciate those hidden complexities, even in the simplest words.
Before we move on, I have to ask about yes, no. And maybe
Okay.
these seem deceptively simple,
Right.
but they hold so much power in a conversation.
Well, think about it.
Okay.
You know, yes implies agreement,
Mm.
a willingness to go along,
Yeah.
perhaps even submission to another's will.
Huh?
Oh. Asserts boundaries, autonomy, even defiance in some contexts.
Right.
And maybe is that realm of ambiguity,
Okay.
of keeping options open,
Right.
sometimes even avoiding a decision.
Wow.
Yeah.
So each of these words is like a mini negotiation
Exact.
shaping the power dynamic
Yeah.
of every interaction.
Precisely. And then sorry, and excuse me, add another layer.
Okay.
Sorry, seeks to repair a social breach,
Right?
requests permission, acknowledges a potential imposition. They're not just words. They're tools for navigating that social landscape.
We've gone from simple greetings
Mm.
to uncovering these hidden power dynamics
That's true.
and the complexity of human emotions,
Yeah.
all from these supposedly basic English words.
And we've only just scratched the surface, because this is where things get really interesting. How do these words come to be?
Right.
What are their historical roots?
Yeah.
That's where etymology comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Etymology.
Yeah.
That's a word I don't use every day.
Right.
Sounds almost like a magic spell.
It does a little bit.
But you're saying it's the key to unlocking even more secrets about these words.
It really is. Think of it as like a time machine for language. By tracing the origins of words, we can understand how our ancestors saw the world and how their experiences shaped the language we use today.
Wow.
It's like you're holding a piece of history in your mouth every time you speak.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
So give me an example. What's like the hidden history behind one of these simple words that we've been discussing?
Okay, well, let's take the word home.
Okay.
A word that evokes feelings of comfort, belonging, safety. It has roots in this Proto-Indo-European word domus, meaning house or dwelling.
Okay.
And this word evolved over time, taking on different forms in various languages.
Right.
But that core concept of a place of shelter and belonging, that remained constant.
But even though our modern homes might look vastly different from the dwellings of our ancestors, the word itself connects us to that ancient desire for a safe haven.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that certain human needs and aspirations, they transcend time and culture.
And the same goes for words like eat.
Absolutely.
I mean, that comes from the Old English word etan, which is related to the Proto-Indo-European root ede, meaning to consume or to bite.
Yeah.
So whether we're enjoying a gourmet meal or just grabbing a quick bite, we're participating in an act.
Totally.
That goes back to our earliest ancestors.
Right. It's amazing how these simple words carry the weight of history and cultural evolution.
It makes you wonder, are there any modern words that might become these kind of foundational words
interesting.
for future generations?
Yeah.
Words that will carry the weight of our current experiences.
That's a fascinating question. It's hard to say for sure which words will stand the test of time.
Right.
But I imagine words related to technology and the digital world might become the new eaten home for future generations.
Yeah.
Think about words like online, download, or virtual. I mean, these are already deeply ingrained in our daily lives.
Yeah, they are.
And could become even more essential in the future.
I can already imagine a future etymologist tracing the roots of online back to like our current era.
Right.
It's a reminder that language is constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
Reflecting those changes in our world and the way we live.
Precisely. And while predicting the future of languages is impossible, it's safe to say that these basic words we've been discussing, they have a good chance of sticking around because they represent such fundamental aspects of human experience, our need to connect, to communicate, to make sense of the world.
It's comforting to know that even as language evolves, some things remain constant.
Absolutely.
And speaking of constants, we've discussed how please and thank you can reflect those power dynamics. How yes and no are tools for navigating social situations. And how even a word like tomorrow embodies our complex relationship with time. But there's one category we haven't delved into as deeply. Feelings and reactions.
Yes. The language of emotions, perhaps the most nuanced and challenging aspect of human communication. Even with a limited vocabulary, we can express a wide range of feelings. But as we touched on earlier, the true meaning often lies beneath the surface. Cultural context plays a huge role in how we express and interpret emotions.
You mentioned earlier that what makes one person happy might be neutral to another. And I can only imagine how angry or sad might be expressed in vastly different ways depending on the culture.
Exactly. Take the word angry, for example. In some cultures, expressing anger openly is considered rude. Or even taboo. While in others, it's seen as a healthy way to communicate frustration. And even within a single culture, there are different ways to express anger, from a raised voice to a subtle change in facial expression.
So learning the words for emotions is just the beginning. Understanding the cultural nuances and unspoken rules around expressing those emotions is key to effective communication.
Absolutely.
It seems like a potential minefield for misinterpretations.
It can be, but it's also an opportunity for incredible growth and understanding. By paying attention to how different cultures express emotions, we can become more sensitive communicators and build stronger relationships across cultural divides.
So how can we use these basic words for feelings and reactions to communicate more effectively, especially when dealing with complex emotions that go beyond simple happy or sad.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how often we struggle to articulate our feelings even in our own language.
It's true. One approach is to combine these basic emotion words with more descriptive language to paint a richer picture of what we're feeling. Instead of just saying, I'm sad, we could say, I'm feeling down or I'm heartbroken.
Right.
It adds a layer of depth and helps others understand the intensity and nuance of our emotions.
So it's about building upon the foundation of those simple words to create more precise and expressive language.
Exactly.
But what about those times when words simply fail us? How do we communicate emotions that are difficult to put into language? Especially across cultural boundaries.
That's where nonverbal communication comes into play. Our facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice often speak volumes.
Right.
A gentle touch, a warm hug, or even a shared silence can sometimes convey more than words ever could.
Wow.
Think about how a simple smile can transcend language barriers and create an instant connection.
So effective communication isn't just about finding the right words.
It's not.
It's about using all the tools at our disposal to express ourselves authentically and connect with others on a deeper level.
Precisely. And remember, communication is a two-way street.
Right.
It's not just about expressing our own feelings. It's also about actively listening to the emotions of others, even when those emotions are unspoken.
It's making me realize that effective communication, especially when it comes to emotions, is an art form in itself.
It truly is.
It requires empathy, patience, and a willingness to be vulnerable.
And like any art form, it takes practice and a willingness to make mistakes. But the rewards are immeasurable. When we can communicate our emotions effectively, we build stronger relationships. We create more understanding and foster a more compassionate and empathetic world.
On that note, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've explored so far. From greetings to emotions, from power dynamics to cultural nuances. These simple words have revealed a world of complexity and insight.
It's amazing what we can discover when we look beneath the surface of the everyday.
And
it highlights the power of language to connect us, to help us understand ourselves and others, and to make sense of the world around us.
We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much to explore.
There is.
We've got some fascinating listener questions waiting for us. Let's dive into the practical applications of these powerful words in everyday life.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a renewed sense of awe for the power of simple words.
It's remarkable, isn't it, how much depth we've uncovered in the everyday? And it seems our listeners are feeling it too. We've got some great questions that take this exploration even further.
Let's dive right in. Our first question comes from Sarah. She asks, if these basic words are so powerful, are there any tips for using them more effectively in everyday conversations?
That's a great question, Sarah. And it reminds us that communication isn't just about the words themselves, but how we deliver them. So one tip is to be mindful of your tone of voice. Even a simple yes can convey enthusiasm, hesitation, or even sarcasm, depending on how you say it.
So it's like adding this layer of musicality to our speech.
Exactly.
What else can we do to make those basic words really sing?
Pay attention to nonverbal cues. Your facial expressions and body language can amplify or contradict your words. Imagine saying, I'm happy while frowning. The message gets muddled. We're communicating even when we're not speaking.
That's true.
So that congruence between words and body language, that's key.
It's a good reminder to be aware of our overall communication style. Speaking of sending mixed signals. Our next question is from John, who asks, how do you navigate saying no politely? Especially in situations where you don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
That's a universal challenge, John.
It is.
It's all about finding that balance between honesty and kindness. One approach is to express appreciation before declining. You could say, thank you so much for thinking of me, but I'm not able to commit to that right now.
So acknowledging the request before stating your no?
Exactly.
Oh, that softens the blow a bit.
It does.
Any other strategies for those tricky no situations?
Sometimes a brief explanation helps. You might say, I'd love to, but I'm already overcommitted this week. You don't have to over-explain, but a little context can go a long way.
It's also important to remember that no is a complete sentence, right? We have the right to set boundaries, without feeling obligated to justify ourselves.
Your no is valid.
Yes.
And you don't owe anyone an explanation if you don't feel comfortable giving one.
Right.
Trust your intuition and prioritize your own well-being.
Our final question comes from Maria,
Okay.
who's feeling a bit overwhelmed by the prospect of learning new languages.
Yeah.
She asks, do you have any advice for getting started? All the grammar rules and vocabulary feel intimidating.
I understand completely, Maria. It's easy to feel lost when faced with a new language.
Right.
My advice is to start with the basics.
Okay.
Greetings, common phrases, and yes, those 66 powerful words we've been dissecting.
So building a solid foundation with the essentials before tackling the more complex stuff
Exactly.
makes sense.
Yeah.
What else can help those starting on their language journey?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's all part of the learning process.
Yeah.
The more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
Right.
And remember, the goal is communication, not perfection.
Exactly.
And find ways to use what you're learning in real-life situations.
Oh, yeah.
Chat with native speakers, watch movies, read books,
Right?
even if you only understand a few words at first.
Yeah.
Immersion is key.
Absolutely. The more you surround yourself with the language, the more natural it will become.
Okay.
And who knows, you might even discover hidden depths in your own native language along the way.
Well said. It's been an incredible journey exploring the power of simple words.
It really has.
From basic greetings to the nuances of emotional expression.
Yeah.
We've seen how these building blocks of language shape our communication, our relationships,
Right.
even our understanding of the world.
And we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
I know, it's exciting.
There's a lifetime of exploration to be had with even the simplest words.
So as you go about your day, pay attention to the words you use.
Yeah.
Both spoken and unspoken.
Right.
Embrace the nuances, explore the depths, and remember, even the smallest words have the power to create profound connections.
And shape our experience of the world.
Well, until next time, happy communicating.